E.T. Home phone.
Hey, past due movie review fans and peoples, we're here again to talk. It's Tyler and Lance Richards. We're brothers, as you could probably tell, and we're coming to you from the Cleveland area in Ohio, and Lance is coming to you from Florida, somewhere in Florida, in the Gulf side.
Nobody knows the true spot. Like, when the GPS tries to find me for, like, if I'm looking for things to get in Home Depot or whatever, it says you're in the Jacksonville area, and I'm like, that's 2 hours away from me. That is nowhere near.
You wouldn't happen to know the way to Fort Lauderdale, would you?
Try to make your directions clear because we get lost easy.
What?
Hey! Thanks for nothing!
But with that being said, almost everything's 2 hours away from me. Tallahassee's 2 hours away. Tampa's 2 hours away. Jacksonville, like I said.
Yeah.
And then Orlando's 2 hours away. So everything is pretty much 2 hours away, except for Miami, which
I'm going to Miami.
which is 7 hours south.
Ugh.
So you
I
all
don't know
can
if I
guess
wanna
where I
go to
live,
Miami.
but I'm not going to find it for you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I've been there, and it's an interesting place, but we're not here to talk about the places we live. We're here to talk about movies. And we got a good one for you. Our movie of the week, we're a little behind, but our movie of the week is E.T., the extraterrestrial. No one says the extraterrestrial, but they just say E.T. So that's E.T. Be good.
E.T., can you say that? Can you say E.T.? E.T.
E.T. E.T. Be good.
Be good.
Lance, what do you remember about this movie? What stood out to you?
It was when they present E.T. and Elliot together, how quickly they join up with their emotions. It's said, like, Michael talks about it later in the movie when he's explaining it to the scientists. They ask him how they're connected, and they ask, well, does he think these thoughts? And he goes, no, he feels his feelings. And so the emotion is what you're getting from this movie. It was how quickly that begins when they first start the movie. Once they get connected, it's like, boom, it's already happening. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was like that quick of a deal. But the thing is, the pacing in this movie is pretty phenomenal. But there's a reason why. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. He knows what he's doing, and he just got the ball rolling quick.
For sure. When you're talking about feeling his feelings, I guess the technical term people would say empathic, able to feel and things like that. But you can tell Elliot already is a passionate person. The main character, besides E.T., if people don't know, E.T.'s just like a puppet animatronic and actually pretty stand out as far as effects were concerned. I do remember actually taking an old girlfriend to see this when it was re-released in theaters, and this is when they had brought in some updates. They went a little George Lucas style.
Yeah, they did.
And then I think they got rid of them. They took them out because it was too stupid and cheesy looking. Like at one point, I watched the movie today. Instead of guns towards the end, when they're getting up there and flying, they had radios. So I'm like, that is not intimidating. Why are you like? Of course, it makes it more of a dramatic moment with the guns, and obviously they don't shoot anybody in that movie. But
yeah,
that
well,
movie.
Not that I want to promote it, but South Park has a pretty funny episode where they're complaining about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg updating all their old movies, and every movie, like all the big blockbusters, Indiana Jones, you got E.T., there's a few others where they all have walkie-talkies. So you see the walkie-talkies that are shooting like a machine gun, like, and there are people getting killed by the walkie-talkie instead of a gun because it's better.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, this is way better with the walkie-talkie. Yeah. It's cleaner, right? Although,
yeah.
No,
I was gonna say the version I watched with E.T. it was not the, like you said, the revised version that they had come out with. It was back to the original, but the screen just looked really good, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they remastered it, and I think this is kind of a sidetrack. Remaster your movies, absolutely. Make sure the audio and the video, everything is crystal clear and sounding good. There's always little things that will pop up, and people remember those. Actually, they like the mistakes sometimes because it's a thing. And like at the boom mic, on some of these movies dips, and you can find these little mistakes, and it just brings people kind of this sense of nostalgia, like, oh yeah, it's still in there and all these things. But obviously George Lucas did not pull back. I think you can find the original trilogy, but I'm paying for one set of Star Wars. Sorry. I'm not going to spend all that money. But so what are some of the interesting things that you found out about this movie that were popping out?
Well, like we went over it before, Steven Spielberg directed this one, which is no surprise. What I saw was that this is probably his fifth big movie that he came out with. So he's pretty much a veteran at this point, and he's at the top of his game. So when this movie hit theaters, it was going to be a hit no matter what. Because people had already seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which had come out 5 years before that in 1977. And that one was huge. And I would say that one's slower going. E.T. is definitely more family friendly in a sense of the little kids are involved, and it's a lot of fun. And the box office, I'm looking at a page right now, $797 million is what it brought in. So just a huge movie. And again, so going back to our podcast, this is our first blockbuster movie we're talking about. So everybody kind of knows all the themes and things will hit. But the music score, John Williams, I forgot it was John Williams, but it makes sense because of the George Lucas and Steven Spielberg connection. But I would say from a John Williams perspective, you get some of the, not Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe, but more of like The Last Crusade, some of those themes in the music that kind of come in and out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a different score for John Adams, I would say.
Thomas, for God's sake, listen to me.
Oh, John Williams. Sit down, John. Sit down.
Yeah. Man, I'm an idiot. People are going to be like,
you're good.
This guy he doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just talking.
It's okay. No, I think you're right, because he uses some different instruments. When I was watching it again, I think there's some like synth that was happening. He hits all the key moments so well. The bike scene when they're running away and they're biking away. Dun, 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 dun. Like, it's just intense, and it rolls and it goes, and the music all hits at the right spot. Of course, that's John Williams. He's just so good. I know that he probably feels like that's, I don't know if what he would say about his movie scores, but he's just able to bring all the emotion, and especially at the end of the movie, I cried like a baby almost every single time. You're like, I will be right here. All those things. But I love this movie's score, like you said. I think Steven Spielberg, just to point on him a little bit, I was watching some of the cinematography, and it's brilliant because, like, in that scene where he's doing the frog stuff, where Elliot's in class, you don't see the teacher's face at all. Steven Spielberg is actually a master at some of those things. He's done this in several films. Well, he has somebody not facing the camera. So like, I pretend I'm facing this person, and their back is to the camera, but I feel like it makes it real. It makes it it makes it like you're in it. And sometimes I feel like movies lose some of that artistic expression and drawing you in, and all the little things that if you don't watch closely, you're gonna well, I think the reason you enjoy so much is because of all the different nuances and little things that bring it together. But anyway,
Yeah, I think the music in the beginning of the movie, when you see all the ET extraterrestrial creatures, I don't know if they have a name, but they're all walking through. Is it the Sequoia National Park? Is that what they call that? It's the one with the big, huge trees in California, and they're
yeah, that would
picking up.
be yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're picking up all like the flowers. Like you see it, like it's the hints that they put in, and you see them pick up flowers. They're kind of after like these beautiful things that grow, and you see one of the extraterrestrials. It's probably ET. He's like looking up, and he sees these trees, and you get the music from John Williams. It's so dark and mysterious, and it's kind of cold. You can tell that like if you were out there in that forest, you'd want to have a jacket on or something. You would feel kind of shivery. Uh, it just when you're a little kid, and we definitely watched this when we were little kids. I mean, I loved ET, and I was just terrified, absolutely terrified, especially once he's going to meet ET for the first time. But I'll let you get into that. And one of the funny things is that since we grew up in Iowa, it makes it more real because he's got a cornfield around his property for some reason, or they've got some sort of vegetable garden.
Sweet corn.
And
Yeah.
and we grew up out in the country kind of, and we had corn as our background. Our backdrop was corn. And Tyler will attest to this, and maybe I shouldn't bring it up, but we'd be on our swings going back and forth listening to music, and I don't think Tyler would get scared, but all of a sudden I'd get the creepiest feeling, especially when the corn was tall, that like something was looking at me, right? Maybe it was probably the whole ET thing. Oh man, I'd kind of slowly get off the swing, and I'd kind of start walking back, and then man, I'd just book it towards the house. I was like, I'm done.
I was more freaking out about the barns, because the barns were actually pretty creepy too. And there wasn't light everywhere. I don't know if Dad had kept that up or not, but no, it was kind of freaky out there on the swings at night. But yeah, one of the things about this movie, you sense right away that obviously it dives right into the extraterrestrial. It doesn't hold back. It just says, yeah, there's aliens and here they are. You don't, but I like the mystery that surrounds, and it allows you to build and build and build and build. And I feel like that's the stroke genius of Steven Spielberg for sure, is just that continuing building. And that was kind of indicative of the 80s. You know, you didn't show the monster right away. There was lots of building, and then they got into the 90s, and there was no build. It was just weird and gory, and there wasn't, I don't know, filmmaking got a little bit different in the 90s. But that's what I love about ET, is just it continues to build and soar. One of the weird things I thought about the movie when I was rewatching it, I understand why they had astronaut suits in when they're coming into the home and invading it, but what I don't get is the sun shield. Like, what's the sun shield down for? It's to block the sun. What do they need it down for? Is it just part of the mystery? Obviously, that was overlooked as far as like continuity type things. But I was like,
it's just there to freak you out, man. That's terrifying. You're just like, I think they're walking like zombies, you know?
Yeah.
Coming at you. Yeah. It's like a little Darth Vader scene.
Oh, for sure. What do you think about Drew Barrymore in this movie? Because she's like 5 years old, 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that. She's one of the more believable characters for sure. Like, what did you think about her performance in that?
Yeah, so I've heard stories over the years about, I don't know if it's true or not, maybe it is, you might be able to validate it or invalidate it, is that they told her during filming that ET was real, or that he was a real creature or something. And so they manipulated this poor little thing. I'm talking about Drew Barrymore. And so when E.T. is getting electric shock to come back to life, what they say is that those tears are like, she's just, those are super real tears. She thought E.T. had died. But like
Well, don't they
fantastic
shock?
child acting. Yeah.
Yeah, just that for sure. I I know that Drew thought she. I think I watched an interview with Drew, and she said she thought it was real, like you said.
Okay.
But yeah, that's good acting for sure. Did you know, Lance, that there was a planned sequel? But George, like, there was a planned sequel by the studio, and the studio was pushing hard to get a script. And Steven Spielberg said no, but then I think he wrote a script, and the script was like just completely wacky, where like there was these aliens these other aliens that like ate people and all, like it was just crazy. It was like a horror movie. He changed it into a horror movie, and I think it's because he didn't want to ruin it. He didn't want to do a sequel, and
Yeah.
I applaud him for that. You know, there's some sensibility about not having a sequel, but I don't know if you ever saw the commercial. It actually had Henry Thomas in the actual commercial. I thought that was just a brilliant, like, short couple minute. ET comes back, spends time with Elliot's family, and he goes back, and it was like, yeah, this is like the most fitting thing.
Family.
Oh.
Thing. And I don't think I'd ever want anything more of that. Now, the ride at Universal was kind of the sequel, where you go to ET's planet on bikes, which is completely fabricated, but it's for fun. And
I remember being on the
yeah,
bikes. I didn't know we were going to his planet. How about that?
yeah,
That went
yeah,
whoop over
yeah.
my head.
I love that ride. I'm like, yeah, ET. But I don't think it's around anymore.
No, I think from a childhood dream, if you can go to Universal Studios and they have ET and you grew up with ET, is if you dream about when you're a kid riding on that bike with the rest of the kids and
Yeah,
doing what
yeah.
they're doing and flying over the moon and just being on that adventure. It's one of those where you want to be on the adventure with them and you want to be on the bike and you want to
Mhm.
be with all these kids like Michael's buddies as they're going
Yeah.
off and helping them out.
Yeah, did you notice in the beginning scenes there's a cigarette that's sitting on the table? Because I was like, what's the smoke? And I finally was able to find the cigarette. And then Elliot and his brother, or Michael's dad or mom, she comes in at some point, and I'm like, can she not smell the cigarettes? Because obviously she's not smoking. We know that she doesn't smoke. You don't see it, or at least you don't see it in the entire movie. And I'm like, why is she not beating down on that? I think his name was Tyler. Why is she beating down on this kid? Because like she had to have known, like, you can smell cigarette smoke for a while. And I'm like, oh my gosh. That was the only part that I was like, yeah, okay.
Well, I think
Somebody
early 80s, I don't know, like you kind of wonder where is the mom? You can tell that things aren't right at home. Where you have all these kids like they're
Yeah.
playing looks like Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. It's
Yeah.
not Dungeons and Dragons, it's something else, but it's a game where Elliot wants to play, but it's Michael and all his friends, so they're obviously 4 or 5 years older. And yeah, there's a cigarette sitting there, and I was like, these kids are smoking. At least one of them is, doing the cool thing. But then you see the mom come in, and what is she wearing? She's wearing a bathrobe. Like she's not even kind of present with what they're doing.
Yeah,
And so you kind of get these tells that things aren't going right at home.
that's true. That's true.
Kind
And
of with their
I don't
language
think-
and all that too.
Yeah, and we don't ever see Elliot's dad. I mean, I think some people have made the assumption that it was Peter Coyote's character, but I don't think that
No.
that was all the case.
When
Just
I was a
bringing
kid,
up-
and they're in the garage and they're going through all their dad stuff, and then they bring up all these old stories of their dad taking them to ball games, and they take his shirt and then they just take deep breaths of his shirt just to kind of get any glimpse of their dad. And then you
Mhm.
see this guy listening like kind of what we got, and he is listening close because they bugged the house.
Yeah.
And I always thought that guy Peter Coyote was their dad for the longest time. But you know what's funny? this character's name is Keys, and in the beginning when they're chasing after ET, you see these keys going ching 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 ching. They just keep jingling and
Yeah.
jingling. Yeah, that's the character's name, and he's like the main scientist or whoever's that's chasing after him.
Oh wow. Can you imagine being an actor and being told, "Hey, we're just gonna shoot your waist for the first half of the movie, or more than that, and we don't see your face until then." And I would be like, I mean, it's you. It's obviously you doing it, but I mean, I guess it could be anybody, really. He doesn't even have to show up if his face isn't on there. But speaking of his character says something interesting. And he says, when Elliot's like, he came to me, and that character Key says, he came to me too. And I've been wishing for this since I was 10 years old. So I'm like, so did he have an encounter? I think there's an insinuation, but it doesn't ever get explained. Like I would, that's my assumption. I don't know what you thought about that, but that's my assumption.
Yeah, there's definitely a mystery that they don't elaborate on with Key's character, where there's something he knows something about these aliens, and he almost kind of knows what they look like in a way, possibly, but he knows where they're gonna land. Like clearly, he knew something. Like they were looking in the night sky for these things to arrive, and they found them.
And he doesn't even seem surprised at ET. He looks at him actually with a sense of like just like remembrance almost. It's not like he's like, oh man, I remember. Everything kind of comes back, and I guess that's the fun thing about a story is you can read into it how you wish. And I think that's what actually good storytelling does. It doesn't give you all the pieces. Sometimes all the pieces can actually make it more complicated. But I want to talk quick about the kids, Michael, Elliot, and Gertie. Elliot, obviously, like you said earlier, has this empathic feeling connection. But what I love that Steven Spielberg does in that movie is he shows that the kids are forever changed. Even Michael in the bus, and Gertie still has that childlike thing, but she's sensitive and feels like he's a friend or a family member. And I really appreciate that, because you would be forever changed. You wouldn't think about things ever the same. Your life would be different from then on. So yeah, I like that part of that movie.
Yeah, like the part where Michael's on the school bus and every single kid on there is throwing spit wads and paper and just whatever. I've never seen a bus like that in my life act like that, but I guess the 80s were different.
In California?
Yeah, but then you see him when ET's dying, he goes to where ET kind of his room was with all the stuffed animals, and you just see him cuddle up right in that spot, just like he wants to be with ET. He's doesn't have the like emotional connection like Elliot does, but he's definitely present. And then the same with Gertie, right? She's just a young child. She obviously can feel the emotion, and the weight of everything. But what Michael connected was that plant, ET had brought it back to life, and I thought that was cool. He had acknowledged that there was whatever telepathic abilities and healing properties that ET had. He was helping things in their area.
Yeah, and their mom, Mary, she finally gets it at the end where she is watching Elliot mourn after ET's death, and she gets it. She gets that this was not a beast or something, that it was special and meaningful, and he was somebody in their life that was good. And so and I'm glad for that, because sometimes it can feel like characters can feel disconnected and things like that in movies, and you're like, oh well, I wish they would have helped these characters connect in a certain way. But I feel like he did a good job that way. I was trying to remember another fact about ET, but I don't know if you had any more facts. I mean, this is probably going to be a little bit shorter of a podcast. We love this movie, everybody knows it. But was there any more fun facts about this movie?
Well, it kind of goes back to when Elliot first meets ET, how he goes from the way that the movie's kind of shot, and you see ET come out of that shed, and he's gone. when I was a kid, it was nothing more terrifying. I don't know if I had to turn the lights on or I had to have you in the room or somebody, but I could not watch that part by myself. I think I even fast forwarded through it a few times because it was too much for me. And
Yeah.
E.T.'s passing along the Reese's Pieces he had put out for him, and then that's how Elliot gets him up in the room. And then after that moment, like most of the scary stuff is gone. For like you're not scared of ET anymore. You're scared of what's going to happen to ET, and I think that's kind of a cool transition that you get in the movie. One of the characters, when I was looking at these boys that are Michael's friends, I was like, oh, is that the guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off? And no, that wasn't the kid. He kind of looks like his buddy. I can't remember the name of that
Oh,
character.
Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron. But the kid that played, shoot, I had his name up. It doesn't matter. The character, he had like the mask on. He takes his mask off. I was like, man, I've seen that face before. And this is a fun connection. Goes to another movie we used to watch a lot, and you Civil War buffs would enjoy it. But he takes that mask off, and I said, I've seen that face before. And he's Lieutenant. Well, he's the colonel's brother, Lawrence. Or no, Lawrence. Lawrence is his brother. He's the colonel, so he's the lieutenant, the second lieutenant or whatever, in the movie Gettysburg. C. Thomas Howell. And I always liked that character, but I was like, man, it was weird because it's like his grown-up face in that one. I think he's 10 years later, but it was fun to see that he had gone on to make some other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I will say for people that are watching this and they're like, oh, I've never watched CT, or I remember that movie and I haven't seen it in a while and I want to show my kids, beware that this is 1980 something. There were still weird things in it, even though it's PG. Like, I'm not going to say them on here. Maybe you should just watch it before you show your kids. And not that it's terrible, but there's a couple references that you go, oh my gosh. And there is some drinking. E.T. gets drunk. That's actually pretty funny. But then Elliot.
This is before the PG-13 rating came along. So it probably nowadays definitely would be PG-13. But with that being said, It is a fantastic family movie.
It is.
I think as far as scary things go, kids could watch it with their parents and they help them along with it. But in my opinion, when you're a kid, it feels good to kind of get scared. It's a safe zone. Kind of feel the bumps in the night kind of type of movie.
Well, it's definitely a movie you can laugh and cry, and it's one of those movies I would call nearly perfect. Obviously, the effects, no matter when you go back farther than 19 or the 2000s or whatever, you start seeing how effects kind of wear down. But this one actually held up really well. You just have to remember those things. But one of the iconic scenes of the movie is when Elliot is riding his bike and it crosses the moon. That's the setting for Amblin Entertainment. If people didn't know that, Amblin Entertainment, I think, was Steven Spielberg's company, and that's like the setting for it. And it's a brilliant shot. It's one of those shots that it's kind of a one in a million. Somebody just thought of it, and I'm like, oh man, like you don't get many shots like that or opportunities. So there's those things that I think are fun, that if film buffs want to go back and watch this movie, it's one of those watches that you're not going to be disappointed with what you get, for sure.
The moon was definitely bigger back in 1982 because you could fit a whole pack of kids riding through there and they get in the moon shot. It's pretty nice. But so at the end of this movie, I didn't think I was gonna cry, and I'm older now, I'm past my 30s, and gosh dang it, like that part came up and they finally made it to the forest and the spaceship is there and it's ready to take ET back home, and he says, I'll be right here, and boom on his head, like, hey, you're gonna remember me and I'm gonna remember you, like we're not gonna forget each other. This was a great experience we both had, type of a thing. And then it's just emotional. The music, how everything goes. One funny part that I thought was great is when the lift is kind of going back up and you see like the kind of the grates and ET's in it, and it kind of goes up and then there's another shot and it goes up again. It reminded me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. where I don't know if you remember this part where there's a soldier running towards the castle. And there's these two guards and they're watching him, and he keeps going back and keeps going forward, and then he's back again and then all of a sudden he's just there and he whacks these two guys and they're killed. But it was just a short little thing, and obviously that wasn't intended for ET. But man, that I thought of that. And I had a good chuckle.
It's
but
the never ending.
Yeah, the never-ending running, and then all of a sudden you're there. But just such an emotional, like, great payoff at the end. My wife was laughing. She goes, "I'm not gonna cry at this movie." I'm like, "Yeah, because you didn't watch it when you were a kid." Like, there's something that if you watch it in the kid when you're in the '80s, you have this weird emotional connection where you can kind of get back into it. And I think people like my parents or our parents, The Wizard of Oz, my dad will still watch that movie, and I don't have that emotional connection. But for my dad, one of those first color picks for kids, you could really enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great ending to a great movie. And I think that I would probably be upset if they ever tried to make a sequel. Who knows? But
yeah,
I think sometimes some things are worth leaving alone. In this world of reboots and remakes, I go, just leave it alone. Let it be what it is. And if it needs to die eventually, just let it die. But I just don't sometimes. Yeah, that's a different tangent for a different day. We're going to run out of time here. But yeah, well, I love this movie, and thanks for watching it. And we'll have lots of new other movies coming up, but they won't all be blockbusters and they won't all be indie movies, but we're trying to spice them up here and there. And maybe Monty Python will be on the list. Somebody asked for Strange Brew. Somebody asked for Big Trouble in Little China, and there's lots of movies to watch, make fun of, and have just a lot of fun with. But, well, Lance, if there's nothing else, I think we need to sign off here, but I hope everybody has a great day, night, whatever you're doing, and come back for more, and we're happy to entertain and talk to everybody.
That's right. Leave the line on for us. We'll give you a story or two about our memories of movies.
All right, y'all. Well, hey, it was good to talk to you. Good to hang out with all you. We'll see you later.
Peace out.